There's been lots of talk online about Bugatti's service, repair, and maintenance costs recently online, and most of what you hear is simply not true.
Bugatti is facing a huge problem, and it's all due to a single statement from Porsche's CEO. Focus on your business. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Discussions about Mat Armstrong bringing a crashed Bugatti Chiron back from the dead flooded the internet. And suddenly, a debate that many thought was settled for good was back in the spotlight. So what exactly is this controversy? And why is everyone connecting a simple corporate statement to a wrecked Bugatti Chiron and a self-taught mechanic from Leicester? Let's find out. The car that started it all. The car that started this chain reaction was none other than the Bugatti Chiron Pour Sport. Now, this isn't just another expensive supercar. The Pour Sport is one of the most advanced road cars ever built. Powered by an 8.0-liter quad-turbocharged W16 engine producing 1,500 horsepower, it was engineered with one goal in mind: delivering the ultimate driving experience. And with only 60 cars ever built, owning one meant belonging to an incredibly exclusive club. One of those 60 cars belonged to Miami-based content creator Alex Gonzalez. But then, in a single moment, everything changed. Alex crashed the car. The impact devastated the front end of the car completely. Airbags exploded throughout the cabin. Even the transmission housing was shattered to the point it couldn't be repaired. But the most concerning of all, the carbon fiber monocoque, the structural backbone of the entire vehicle, suffered damage deep beneath the surface. When the insurance company examined the wreckage, they estimated that only the part alone would cost $1.7 million. The insurer declared the car a total loss. And on paper, the Pour Sport was finished. But Alex Gonzalez wasn't ready to walk away. So he made a decision that shocked almost everyone who heard about it. He bought it back. At a Copart salvage auction, Alex paid approximately $1.9 million to reclaim what many considered nothing more than a pile of damaged carbon fiber and broken mechanical parts. And now, he wanted to rebuild a car that the insurance company had already declared a total loss. Even the manufacturer itself had little interest in seeing it repaired. But Alex wasn't ready to give up on it. So, he turned to someone known for taking on the impossible. Mat Armstrong steps in. Mat Armstrong wasn't a factory-trained Bugatti technician. He was a mechanic from the United Kingdom who had turned his passion for repairing crashed cars into one of the biggest automotive channels on YouTube. For years, Mat had been buying wrecked Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens, Aston Martins, and Porsches that most people considered beyond saving. He would purchase them from salvage auctions, document every step of the repair process, and somehow put them back on the road. With every rebuild, the stakes increased. The cars became rarer, the repairs became more complex, and the audience kept growing. So when Alex Gonzalez called with a crashed Bugatti Chiron Pour Sport, one of only 60 ever built and worth more than $5 million, it was easily the biggest challenge of Mat's career. He flew to Miami to see the car for himself. And the moment he stood in front of the wreck, he understood what he was dealing with. This wasn't a damaged Ferrari or a crashed Lamborghini. This was a Bugatti. The front end was destroyed. Critical components of the car were missing. And the core of the car, the carbon fiber structure itself, was damaged. But the biggest problem of all, Mat didn't have the tools Bugatti normally used to service a Chiron. What he did have was experience, determination, and a history of proving people wrong. So he accepted the challenge. And because this was Mat Armstrong, he wasn't going to do it behind closed doors. His entire career had been built on showing everything: the successes, the mistakes, the failed attempts, and the solutions. The Bugatti rebuild would be no different. Every step would be filmed and uploaded online for millions of viewers to see. And that's when things became interesting. Because while Mat's audience was watching the rebuild unfold, someone else was watching too: Bugatti itself. As Mat uploaded video after video of the rebuild, Bugatti quickly identified the car through its VYN, the unique identification number assigned to every vehicle. And then they made a move that caught many people by surprise. They locked the car's VIN. As a result, no authorized Bugatti dealer anywhere in the world could sell official parts for that specific car. The supply line was effectively cut off, and without factory support, most rebuild projects would have ended right there. But Mat and his team kept going. When original parts weren't available, they found alternatives. They sourced compatible components where possible. They fabricated custom pieces from scratch. At one point, they spent more than 60 hours building a replacement front crash structure themselves. The obstacle was enormous. Yet, the rebuild continued. And as each new video attracted millions of views, the story grew far beyond a simple YouTube project. What had started as one mechanic trying to save a wrecked hypercar was becoming a public debate about ownership, repair rights, and who gets to decide when a vehicle is beyond saving. Bugatti now faced a problem. The car they believed should never return to the road was slowly coming back to life in front of millions of viewers. And if they wanted to explain why that was a bad idea, they needed to give a public explanation. The cover-up. The person Bugatti chose to respond to the controversy was not a lawyer or a public relations executive. It was their CEO. The man speaking was Mat Armstrong, someone whose entire career had been built on doing exactly the kind of thing Mat Armstrong was attempting. Long before he became the CEO of Bugatti, Mat Armstrong was just a car enthusiast working in a small garage in Croatia. He didn't have a huge budget, a large team, or a famous car company behind him. What he did have was an old BMW and an idea. After blowing up its engine while racing, he decided to replace it with an electric powertrain and build something completely different. That small garage project grew into Rimac Automobili, a company that would eventually create some of the fastest and most advanced electric hypercars in the world. In 2021, that small garage startup merged with Bugatti, and the company became Bugatti Rimac, with Rimac becoming the CEO. Which is why people paid attention when he spoke about Mat Armstrong's Chiron. Mat Armstrong wasn't a corporate executive who had never touched a wrench. He understood exactly what Mat was trying to do. He knew the excitement of taking a broken car and bringing it back to life. He understood the determination, the problem-solving, and the refusal to quit when everyone else says something can't be fixed. Yet, despite all of that, he publicly argued that this particular Chiron should never return to the road. In a video posted to social media, Rimac explained why. According to him, the problem wasn't how the car looked. It wasn't even about protecting Bugatti's reputation. The real concern was safety. He pointed to the damaged gearbox, the impact to the carbon fiber structure, and the thousands of parts and systems that all have to work perfectly together in a car capable of more than 260 miles per hour. To show just how complicated modern hypercars are, Rimac shared an example from Bugatti's own testing program. Engineers once discovered that in extremely cold temperatures, the leather on the dashboard became slightly stiffer than expected. That tiny change was enough to affect airbag deployment, forcing engineers to redesign and retest the system. If something as small as dashboard leather could create a safety concern, Rimac argued, rebuilding a heavily crashed Chiron was far more complicated than simply replacing damaged parts. The impossible rebuild. Watching the Bugatti Chiron. Her sport come back to life was not like watching a typical car restoration. There was no template for this, No repair manual to reference, no authorized workshop that would take a call or share a procedure. Matt and his team were working in something very close to a vacuum, and they were doing it with cameras rolling the entire time. The gearbox housing was repaired. The transmission mount was rebuilt. The front crash structure was fabricated from scratch over a stretch of hours that pushed well past what any reasonable estimate would have suggested. Parts were sourced from adjacent vehicles, where shared components could be confirmed. Each step was tested, documented, tested again. Then, after months of work, they started the engine. The W16, the quad-turbocharged 16-cylinder engine that had defined the Chiron for years, fired for the first time since the crash. The sound traveled out of the workshop and into a YouTube video that millions of people watched. The car that Bugatti had declared finished was running. Not just running, driving. Moving under its own power, on its own wheels, in the condition that the people who had spent months rebuilding it believed was safe. Bugatti had said it was impossible. It wasn't, and that raised a much bigger question. If an independent mechanic could bring a wrecked Chiron back to life without Bugatti's help, then why were manufacturers locking VYN numbers and restricting access to parts in the first place? Porsche's financial collapse. Most people don't know this, but Porsche actually owned a large stake in Bugatti Rimac. When Bugatti and Rimac merged in 2021, Porsche became one of the company's biggest shareholders, holding roughly 45% of the business. It wasn't building the cars itself, but it had invested heavily in the company and stood to benefit if Bugatti Rimac succeeded. For a while, that investment looked like a smart move. The problem was that Porsche suddenly had much bigger issues to worry about. For decades, Porsche had been one of the most profitable car manufacturers in the world. Its profit margins were the envy of the entire industry. Then came 2025. Sales started falling, especially in China, one of Porsche's most important markets. At the same time, the company had spent billions developing electric vehicles, expecting demand to keep growing. It didn't. Global sales fell by 10%, and many of the electric models Porsche had bet on were sitting unsold on dealership lots. The impact was brutal. Porsche's operating profit collapsed by 92.7%. Its profit margin, which had been a healthy 14.1%, fell to just 1.1%. And a 1.1% margin isn't a company having a disappointing year. It's a company barely making money. Ironically, the model keeping Porsche afloat was the Porsche 911, the very car many believed would eventually take a back seat as the company pushed toward an electric future. At the same time, Porsche's parent company, Volkswagen Group, was dealing with financial pressure of its own. The message was simple: raise cash, reduce risk, focus on the core business. So Porsche started reviewing its investments, and one investment stood out immediately: its 45% stake in Bugatti Rimac. Bugatti was an incredible brand. The cars were engineering masterpieces. The shocking statement. On April 24, 2026, Porsche made it official. The company announced it was selling its entire 45% stake in Bugatti Rimac. The buyer was a consortium led by HOF Capital, a New York investment firm whose investments include companies like SpaceX, Anthropic, and Epic Games. Porsche also sold its 20.6% stake in Rimac Group itself. The exact price was never revealed, but analysts estimated the Bugatti Rimac stake alone may have been worth around $500 million. For a company whose operating profit had collapsed by 92.7%, $500 million was not a small number. It mattered. The deal also gave Mat Rimac full operational control of Bugatti for the first time. Porsche CEO Michael Leiters released a statement shortly afterward. It was exactly what you would expect from the head of a major corporation: professional, careful, and polished. He thanked Mate Rimac for the partnership. He spoke about strategy. He spoke about discipline. He spoke about the future. And then he said something that caught everyone by surprise. Focus on the core business. Just 5 words. But within a matter of hours, these words became the most talked about part of the entire announcement. Because everyone understood what they meant. Porsche wasn't selling Bugatti because it had lost faith in the cars. It wasn't selling because Bugatti had failed. It was selling because Porsche needed to focus on Porsche. After a 92.7% collapse in operating profit, after margins had fallen from 14.1% to just 1.1%, every investment was being questioned, including Bugatti. And that is why those 5 words spread so quickly through the automotive world. Because hidden inside that simple sentence was a much bigger reality. The corporate structure that had supported Bugatti's decisions, the structure behind the locked VYNs, the restricted parts, and the public warnings about Mat Armstrong's Chiron rebuild had just changed completely. The company at the top had walked away, and within hours of the announcement, Bugatti found itself facing a very different conversation. The institutional strength behind Bugatti's position suddenly looked less permanent than it once had. The company that had provided much of the financial and corporate weight behind the partnership was exiting the picture altogether. That contrast did not go unnoticed. For months, Bugatti had spoken with the confidence of a manufacturer certain of its position. But now it no longer held that position. And for many observers, that was a reminder that even the largest companies are not immune to pressure. So what does it mean for Bugatti? Bugatti's future. Porsche's exit did not transform Bugatti overnight. The day after the deal was announced, the company was still building the future it had already committed to. At the center of that future was the Tourbillon, Bugatti's successor to the Chiron. The project is still going, but what has changed is the structure above the company. For the first time, Mate Rimac has complete operational control of Bugatti. The corporate framework that had previously surrounded the brand was gone. For years, Bugatti had existed inside a system shaped by one of the world's largest automotive groups. The safety questions that Bugatti raised during the Chiron rebuild did not disappear when Porsche sold its shares. The liability concerns did not disappear. The technical challenges did not disappear. The structure above Bugatti has changed. The cars themselves did not. And ultimately, that may determine how much really changes in the years ahead, the bigger picture. The reason this story escaped the automotive world and entered the mainstream is not that millions of people suddenly became interested in Bugatti's ownership structure. It is because the same argument has been playing out across countless industries for years. The automotive industry has been moving in the same direction. As cars become more connected and more software-driven, seeking independent maintenance has become more difficult. And when that happens, the person most affected is usually the customer. Repairs become more expensive. Waiting times become longer. Owners have fewer choices about who can work on products they legally purchased. That frustration existed long before anyone had heard of Mat Armstrong's Bugatti rebuild. Mat Armstrong did not set out to become the face of that debate. He set out to fix a crashed car. But what millions of people saw in his videos went far beyond one Bugatti. They watched a skilled builder repeatedly encounter barriers that had nothing to do with turning a wrench. And for many viewers, those obstacles felt familiar. It all ultimately comes down to control. Once a company sells a product, the sale itself is only part of the business. There is also the maintenance, the replacement parts, the software updates, and the servicing that follows for years afterward. The more of that process a company controls, the more revenue stays within its own network. That is why manufacturers often prefer customers to use authorized repair centers, approved parts, and official diagnostic tools. From the company's perspective, it protects quality, protects the brand, and creates a consistent customer experience. But critics see another incentive at work. Keeping customers inside the ecosystem means keeping competitors outside it. Independent repair shops have fewer options. Alternative parts suppliers have fewer opportunities, and customers have fewer places to turn when something breaks. The result is a system where the manufacturer maintains control long after the original purchase has been made. In the end, a self-taught mechanic from Leicester turned an impossible rebuild into reality. And in doing so, he set off a chain of events that exposed just how far manufacturers are willing to go to control who can repair the products they sell. So, after hearing this story, what do you think? Was Bugatti justified in protecting its machine? Or did Mat Armstrong prove that owners should have the freedom to repair what they own without manufacturer approval? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more crazy stories like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.